Thanks for that.
Okay, welcome everybody to the continuation of the October, well, actually the September 17th Land Use Board meeting. This is a special meeting, a continuation. It is October 14th. It is 2025. We are going to start with roll call. Bailey,
Present.
Frank,
Present.
Forrest,
You just thought he couldn't get here till 3:30, you said.
he's online, I think.
Oh, Forrest, sorry.
No, that's
Wrong.
okay.
Forrest.
Forrest, can you hear us?
Unmute yourself, sir.
Becky
Present.
and John is not here yet. Quentin
Here.
is here and Jesse is here.
Hi, team. This is Forrest. I'm also online. Thank you.
Thanks, Forrest. Perfect. Thanks for being here. Okay,
So we have a quorum.
we have a quorum. We're gonna start with, as far as approval of minutes from October 8th, those meeting minutes will be included on the agenda for our November meeting. We're gonna move into general public comments. This is comment that the land use board has jurisdiction over. It is also comment on any non-agenda items. For those of you who don't know what's on the agenda, we have one item. It is the consideration of the proposed zoning code update. So please save your public comments for that agenda item. Now, this is general public comment on anything other than that. Is there any general public comment in the room? Seeing none. We can pop online real quick. Is there any general public comment online? If so, you can unmute yourself, turn your camera on, or raise your hand. I don't see any. Last call for general public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay, so we have no planning items this evening, but we do have zoning items. Again, we are continuing our discussion, consideration of the proposed zoning code update, continued from October 8th. Continued discussion of proposed code updates and zoning text amendment recommendations to the city commission. We will start with staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox. The staff report, I did not print out the new one. There were very few changes in it. Basically, it was there was like a note in the section on the land use board meeting on the 8th, basically saying these are the key points that you brought up for discussion. As you had discussed at the last meeting, the changes that I made to the text were based on things that you guys sort of had a consensus on, but there was no formal action taken. So I'm happy to pull those out. They were posted in your packet online. Okay. And I apologize because we only had one, we're gonna try to figure out a better way to do this because we only have one agenda item. But we have multiple attachments tied to that agenda item. It goes all as one. So I think what I'm gonna do in the future is when we have this many attachments, try to create bookmarks in a PDF. But unfortunately, it was difficult to do from home.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to bring up. I know exactly where it is. Actually, this might be an easier way to do it. Give me a sec. And I'm gonna share people at home. I did, sorry, in the version that you got, anything made after October 8th. So I went ahead and unhighlighted the ones that came after the 17th before the 8th that were in your packet last time. So now it's just in the, anything in here highlighted came after November 8th. Or sorry, October 8th I'll do this for a quick view. Okay, I would say the main thing, is this guy right here, the use table. I looked at this some more. Can you see this on your laptop? Okay, good. There was a comment about, transitional housing, supportive housing, and assisted living having the same, allowances, which I agree with. I still believe, and I'm not gonna die on this hill. If you want me to change it, that's fine, but the assisted living typically is more of a community use than what we consider. I mean, it is residential in use, but there's other things going on, so that's why we have it under community uses. I believe that, one of the public comments was, can we move it up under residential uses? I'll do whatever y'all tell me to do at this point, but the main thing I think was that they are looked at the same in the zone, so we have supportive transitional housing, again, all of these, because they have more than just a single family living there, and to maintain that kind of single family for R1, we do not have a lot of R1 zoning. We have the no in these. We do have allowed for R2 for co-living. Transitional housing is conditional, and we actually, sorry, I redefined these because or I tweaked them because I didn't think it was yeah, co-living housing, residential arrangement where a maximum of 10 private sleeping quarters are combined with these different facilities, typically intended for unrelated, so think of co-living as 10. Transitional housing. This is not the latest one. It's, I believe, 4 temporary housing units is what we had. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay.
This is not the latest and greatest, apparently.
I feel like there's like 12.
I have so many versions of these, it's absurd. Stop sharing. Way. Got a 10 private, so that was changed. Supportive transitional. I thought that was supposed to be a maximum of 4. I need to look at that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Every time we change these, it's becoming harder and harder to track for some reason, because we're all using different versions of Word. But basically my goal was to make it the same as far as where they were allowed.
I see now, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's not easy to see, and I'm,
Don't get better glasses.
well. I meant to take some screenshots of these and stick them on a PowerPoint set, just to have time. Okay,
So you changed it, it was allowed in R2, and you changed it to conditional assisted living.
yes, and that's.
Looks like it's always been.
Okay, this one actually, this is the right,
Right.
okay, so yes, this one has tracked. So, no on R1, no for all, the conditional for the adult foster care, the adult foster care maxes out as at 4 people. With, a 24-hour, staff person, so it's small enough where the conditional really is just to kind of ensure that there's no impacts for traffic or anything. I honestly, I would not. I think it could also be allowed. It's the scale of it, since it's limited to 4 people that are being, that are allowed in there. The foster care, I know somebody brought up that term foster care, and because of the way that the state licenses it, they call it adult foster care. We can call it adult care center, but that's what it is. It's typically people with a full-time staff person there that lives there also. But the reason it's conditional and not no is because it's small enough in scale, there can be no more than 4 adults living there that are not staff. And because there's a staff person living there, kind of make sure everything kind of is, nothing gets crazy or out of hand. Kind of to see oversee the maintenance of facility, I guess. That is why we recommended conditional versus no. So I went ahead and changed that after I went back and looked at the state's definition, and also in our current code, it also says 4. I think I just may have left that out in the draft earlier, but, yeah, and so supportive and transitional and co-living housing, both of those, we have no in R1. We have allowed for both in light mixed use, allowed for both in the CBD. Changed it to allow for both in light industrial, and the reason for that being is light industrial, the state requires us, because the way we have it under our code is commercial. It is a commercial use. If you have 5 or more units, it's allowed by right. That came through the state 2 years ago. So since typically co-living supportive transitional housing are probably gonna have 5 or more units, even if they don't all have their own kitchen and everything, it just made sense to put it as allowed, to me. And then no, and I don't know why, for community facilities, the piece, that's a no. We don't have, residential uses in public properties. Now, if right now, I believe we are highlighting public schools as public property. So if I know the school board owns some land up on the north side, if they wanted to provide housing for their employees, then we would rezone that so that it could be allowed. But yeah, that was, added some footnotes, else, I think that was it in the use table. That was changed.
Can I ask a quick question about
Yes,
that
ma'am.
in particular? So I'm just trying to think about what type of housing we currently have and where it is. So Counterpoint has 2 group homes. Are we considering that adult foster care? What are you considering that type of?
So a group home, meaning they have more than like several rooms and they
Yeah.
share a communal kitchen
Yeah,
and
but there's
stuff.
always staff living there.
I would call that co-living housing.
Okay, 'cause they
If
are,
it's, and the reason for a home that's transitional too, if it's just one person, or if there's single mother and children living in, that's just under a residential
Okay,
use.
okay.
So that does not need to be categorized into one of these uses.
okay, that's perfect.
I
And they're number
apologize
2
for
right
the
now.
confusion on my
That
end.
makes sense. Thank you.
But I did. Maximum of 10 private sleeping quarters are combined with shared kitchen, so that's the co-living housing.
That's
Um,
probably represented.
And I would yeah, if they have shared kitchen, living and bath facilities, kind of like there's multiple rooms, and even if they have a kitchenette, that's probably what I would call it,
Okay.
but anything that is currently existing somewhere, and let's say it was rezoned, I think I said this last time, but where that use wouldn't be allowed, that will be considered legally non-conforming, so they are allowed to keep that use, and continue on with it. Yeah, I need to look at this. I know I was looking at this on Thursday about the maximum number, but I don't know that we actually will have a maximum. So I will make a note to make sure I update the supportive transitional housing definition to align with the states. Again, apologies. Yeah, assisted living, like I said, that should all align with that now. Even if it's in a different, community use versus residential, the areas where it's allowed should be the same. There were some suggestions about like to put the word native in for low irrigation landscape, and I absolutely, that was my intent, so, those words were added. Let's see, what's wrong with There we go. So, use of xeriscaping native species, landscaping showed the preference to native and drought tolerant species, tertiary, all of that was changed. Let's see, I made notes. The laying hens also, I did not see a problem with that. I thought that actually was very supportive of things in our growth policy about kind of allowing people to have the ability to, you know, garden, food,
We do have a limit though, right?
they're laying hens.
Numbers. Six, yeah.
I mean, that
And
should
no
be spelled
roosters.
out. It's just-
So through the sanitarian, and again, I think it just says, except for licensed laying hens and except for those, so yes, if we need to have a number of laying hens, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, somewhere we
Okay.
got that
Add,
when we
um,
changed it, so,
well, I'll look at, it
Well,
looks
when
like
we-
that might be elsewhere in the code.
right.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
when we allowed it finally, okay. It's six, I think it's.
well, so we,
I know.
according to this, we didn't have laying hens as an allowance in the zoning code, so that might be elsewhere. So what I will do then is just to make sure that the laying hens,
Cause it's somewhere.
animals.
Dogs too, and I threw myself under the bus.
And when it's, and that's the thing is I don't really, I personally would
Where is
rather
this?
take this out of the zoning code. In a larger area like a county where there's agriculture, it kind of makes sense. In the city, to me, it kind of doesn't, since it's already covered elsewhere in our code. And
Yeah,
it's looked at by the sanitarian, which is, we pay into his salary is my understanding, but he's really housed under the county.
right.
But either way, if we leave it in here, I'll make sure that it's consistent with what the sanitarian allows. Yeah, laying hens, animals, make consistent, so. Apologies for that. The point was no roosters. Yeah, so.
There's one in our neighborhood also.
Pardon?
My hens are noisier than any rooster.
The allowance for the height increase for PUDs for light mixed use, for light mixed use, in a PUD that comes through, the language was. I updated that so that.
Will that get somebody another story? It will not, will it?
60.
If
Well,
36
so
to 40.
so here's the thing, I'm not a big fan of, sorry. Limiting heights by stories, because, I can have a 20-foot tall story inside my building. And I can have a normal 10, 12-foot story.
Okay.
So, that's why we
Okay.
wanna make it height, if somebody wanted to make it 4 stories. It still presents as 40 feet.
Okay.
If that's what they want to use, but I do wanna find. The language was up there, it is. To make it. Bless you.
There it is.
So yeah, height increases are allowed in the R2 and the LMU zoning districts up to 40 feet. And then this was just tweaked to basically say that was another, I don't know why I didn't highlight this, but that's the same thing. The LMU, so, that was one it made sense to me. It's not that over densification along there for now. I mean, again, right now you can have 60 feet in highway commercial. But to allow people to kind of take advantage of, I know there was something brought up about the certain parts of Park Street are within the URA district to allow you to kind of capitalize or take advantage, I guess, of some of those programs they have to fund housing, and renovation, restoration, or adding housing units to the downtown. This kind of allows you to maximize that a little bit without overtaxing what our infrastructure can handle right now. And I think that was the main things that I went ahead and just changed in the text. One other one. So this is something that let's see. This is not, I realize, the best way to. Parking requirements. Here we go, for short-term rentals, this was something we had intended to bring forward, and we've discussed it more internally since the last meeting, and there is, examples of this. I think I found a similar type of waiver of this language in, I want to say it was Bozeman's code, which is what we were looking for. The point is, if you're able to do it, if you are able to park on your property, we want you to do it.
Yeah.
And we will look at that at licensing. If you are not, rather than have that go through to the commission, we're recommending it's that the zoning administrator, since the zoning administrator also has, I can look at the most similar uses and determine if that is allowed, if we don't have a use explicitly listed. Same for parking requirements, waiving parking requirements. So it can come through me. I will look at it when it comes through licensing, and I'll look at and if they can reasonably accommodate it without like ripping off one of their bedrooms or, you know, going to too much trouble, you know, if there's already a garage there and they can't have it, I'll look at that. There are a lot of houses, as you know, that don't actually have driveways that connect to the street. And so people are already using a space behind their house maybe to park. And in that case, when you come through for licensing, you will show me that that parking space that you're using perhaps for the house is going to be used for the short-term rental. And then you're just going to tell me that you park on the street for you, since you're allowed to do that. But this is to give people an option, again, not trying to keep people or ding them, you know, from having this. And this will be short-term rentals that are there right now that come through. And I'll look at it and evaluate. And if we can identify a place where you could park on your property for the short-term rental, then that's where it would be. And it would be one per short-term rental unit. So this is added language since October 8th that we are
That
recommending.
makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Case by case thing, yeah.
Yeah. But I know I didn't make any adjustments to the type 1 and 2 where they would be allowed, anything like that, because I think that merited more discussion with you guys. And then I did not make any changes to the riparian. That was the other thing that was brought up, the riparian setback. We did meet internally. We met, the city manager and our city attorney and I met. And we are at this point comfortable with proceeding with the understanding that we have the legal ability to apply riparian setback requirements. However, I would like the opportunity to research some more. There are the recommended guidelines that we were provided in some of the comments, which is 300 feet back from the Yellowstone River, which would mean 600 feet on total from the Yellowstone. We don't have a ton of properties that touch the Yellowstone, but for Fleshman Creek, when they're saying basically Fleshman and Billman, I think they said, for those, if I'm not mistaken, 150 and 100 for any others. I don't think we have any others. We would not apply these to ditches. So, or right now, we are not intending to apply them to ditches. You certainly could. Although, as you know, ditch companies have their own maintenance easements and all, they are probably also trying to keep junk out of their ditches. So for agricultural ditches. So I'm guessing they do a pretty good job of that themselves. But yeah, I think that those numbers, I've looked around at the count and other counties, the setback numbers seem to be larger. I suspect that's because their minimum lot sizes are also typically larger than city lots. Some of the other cities have smaller. I did not see any at 10. That is quite small.
Yeah.
But I think there's also what I would like the opportunity to look into some more, and I would ask you if you want to go with some of those large setbacks that were included in comments, then I would say include that in your recommendation. If you want to stick with the 10 feet that we've proposed, include that. If you want to include no riparian setbacks, you can do that. Or if you want to allow me the time to look into this a bit more, because riparian setbacks and are kind of for different things. I mean, there's multiple things, but I think to me, a case could be made that whereas along at least the north side of the Yellowstone where there's no bluff, you know, yes, that the riparian areas may be providing storage for high water and high water events. I don't know that I have an idea that Fleshman Creek does the same. I've asked quite a few people that were here during the flood since I was not. And my understanding is there was not a lot of water that came out of Fleshman Creek because it is monitored by a gate, by an irrigation gate that I think is right at the top of the lake that goes into the park. If I'm not mistaken, the lagoon, that
Yeah.
northern lagoon.
Yeah.
Thank God you're here, because I don't know these things, but, that would be my big concern, is 150 feet setback from Fleshman Creek would. That's,
Pretty much.
that would pretty much,
Yeah.
entire properties, because there are properties over, you know, by like 10th and 11th Street where that creek cuts right through. And so there's a difference between saying, you know, we don't want to see any we just want a vegetative buffer, maybe for 5 feet. But then for a building buffer, we want to put 10 feet back. And so maybe that's the way to look at it. I'd like more opportunity to look into it and best practices and then look at it for our area, because I think it's a bit different. I think to compare Fleshman Creek with, I mean, it is a perennial creek. It flows year round from what I can tell. I mean, obviously it flows
Pretty
under in some places. And again, if Fleshman is undergrounded through your property, we're not talking about that. You don't have to worry about that. This is where the whole point of the riparian buffer, right, is one of the points is to protect water quality. And with preventing sediment going in or pesticides or whatever. So if that's the case, then it doesn't make a difference if it's underground on your property. It's only if it's a surface stream or creek through your property. But yeah, I think there might be a compromise, that allows us to look at what you build. Maybe it's the case of if you want to put in a patio, fine, but you need to put in pervious pavers. Maybe it's nothing impervious within the first 5 feet or something like that, or 10 feet. And then you can't build anything to a certain extent. I do not anticipate that what staff is gonna come back with, though, what I would come back with is going to be 300 feet and 150. I will just say that. I think that could pose an issue, a concern, a takings concern. But just because of our lot sizes, but, yeah, that's where I am with that right now. And we just met on Thursday, I think. So I have not had a chance to do a whole lot of diving into this. I found information that was provided to you, emailed out to you, and I also, sorry, I printed it out, handout from Friends of Park County. There's the fact sheet. This was done, I think, by the Montana Audubon Society, maybe. Basically discussing our stream setbacks considered a takings. This is not necessarily, it's case law, but it's not somebody giving you a legal opinion or recommendation. So I think that's totally fine to include in your consideration if you would like.
Sorry.
And then the room to roam,
Good question. That's what they-
this is, this was the governor's task force. I think this was actually done in 2009 from what I could tell, but I think a lot of this information is very good. It's, you know, what's the benefit of having this, what do these setbacks do for water quality? I've even found something online basically saying that property values from a realtor perspective, a real estate perspective, actually increase if people feel like there's protections for the waterway. Again, I would like to look at towns that have platted lots the size of ours and maybe a creek that's similar. You know, one recommendation was, okay, well, we can assign, we can get a consultant to look at this and kind of look at the situation. We don't have the resources for that, unfortunately, so, I'm gonna look at the recommendations. I think they were all pretty much the same, those that were for the riparian setbacks. I think it was 300, 150, and either 50 or 100. So I think they all came from the same place. But I just would like to look at some more that I can bring forward to the city commission and say, this is what we're recommending, this is why, this is what we found elsewhere. And allow our city attorney to be able to look at what we're recommending and say, yes, I've vetted this, I'm comfortable with this.
Can I ask you a question on that
Of
topic?
course.
While we're on it, we might as well just knock it out. My first question is, in the draft under section 30.58.3 or somewhere in here, the only place I see the 10-foot setback, a buffer of at least 10 feet from the ordinary high water mark of a perennial stream shall be observed with no construction allowed. So two questions. One, is there another place in here, and I'm just missing it, that is addressing the Yellowstone River? Or is the Yellowstone River considered a perennial stream?
We'd consider that a
Okay,
perennial stream.
okay, because
And I'll look at that number if we, again, some people say large, they look at it from ecological significance. To me, perennial stream is anything that is running year round.
okay,
If I'm mistaken, I'll get that fixed, but
okay.
Yellowstone runs year round, so.
Yeah, it just seems like there might be two, in the public comments, there were, they differentiated between the Yellowstone and then these
Billman and
perennial,
Fleshman.
Billman,
Yeah.
Fleshman. So I'm curious if we shouldn't differentiate in the zoning code based on the type of perennial stream we're talking about.
And I think that's another good recommendation.
Okay.
And it makes sense compared to, I think, the things that I've had a chance to look into is that there are different setbacks for different types of streams. You know, I guess if you want to just in layman's terms, the scale of the water body, there's a
Yeah.
whole big difference between the Yellowstone and how much water there's in there available for water quality, for water storage in a floodplain versus Fleshman Creek, Billman Creek.
Mhm.
Um,
And in that Pioneer engineering study that was in here, it certainly referenced Yellowstone with lots of great photos, but when they were getting down to like Fleshman and Billman, I think they mentioned Fleshman, but there was no specific section about Fleshman, so it does seem like there's different, they could be differentiated.
yeah,
And then my other question on that one is, we had talked about defining construction. So in section 30.58.3, section C, a buffer of at least 10 feet from the ordinary high water mark of a perennial stream shall be observed within which no construction is allowed. And the question was, is that a fence? Is it a patio? Is it a shed? Is it a addition to your house? So I don't know if that needs some more definition, because like you were saying, is it a porous, paver? Is it a chain link fence versus a wood fence? I don't know.
yeah, to me, there's definitely a difference between if somebody wanted to put, like I said, like a patio, especially if they're gonna use porous paving, I would just say that. And if you want a vegetated buffer, and maybe that's kind of the way to look at it, is there a vegetative buffer where nothing can happen? You don't even mow, and I would recommend that be pretty small, but it's nice to catch any kind of, when you put stuff out on your lawn to help kind of filter it before it gets in the stream versus actual construction.
Okay.
But one of the comments, that I saw was, people want to be able to put, whatever, build a little garage or something in there, in that setback.
Yeah.
10 feet from, and so, I hate to say, and in my past experience with Boulder County, a lot of it was like if it required a building permit. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of something's there and inhibiting either the water's ability to kind of use that room or any kind of disturbance or development or whatever, a tough shed, I mean, is not gonna be the same amount of disturbance unless you're actually building a base for it or
Like a
a foundation. But I don't think most people do that.
Part permits for anything over 250 square feet.
So tough sheds, most of
trying-
them are under
Oh, okay.
200, I think.
Trying to remember where the cutoff is.
I have to ask Jim, I think
10 by
it's,
10 or 20.
it's either 200 or 250. I know we don't have, cause
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
it's not, there's not a height difference. If you have any sort of, like utilities, so if you have electric or you have water running to it, you do need a
Need
building
a
permit. But again, to me, if somebody is gonna put, you know, a tough shed or they wanna build a little deck that it sends out into this. I mean, if along Flashman Creek and Billman, the concern is the water quality, then maybe we tie it to the building permit and say, okay, when you come in for building permit, you need to show me how you're gonna put out, you know, control measures so that when you disturb the ground, it doesn't go in. Or you need to show me that you're putting up some kind of grasses, permanently leave them in, whatever it is. And I don't know where that is right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Or what that is.
Okay.
But yes, I do think, so I would say if you wanna make a recommendation based on like, you know, you want staff to look into it more, but you think there needs to be some delineation between or difference between the larger waterway, like the Yellowstone versus, you know, Fleshman and Billman. Put that in the recommendations and yeah, I can.
Great. Perfect, thank you.
May I make a few comments, and can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, hi Becky.
First off, on the stream type, so perennial, you are correct, that a perennial is a stream that runs year round. There are two other stream types that are defined as intermittent and ephemeral. An intermittent stream runs seasonally. So it may not be running during the winter when all of the snow is frozen and there's no runoff, but then during the spring, summer, fall, it would run. An ephemeral stream is something that runs in response to a storm event. So if you get a big rainstorm, then a stream might run for, a couple hours or a couple of days with that. I did notice that there was a comment letter talking about Fleshman Creek, that there are times where towards the end of it, it runs dry because there are water rights that pull water out of that. Nonetheless, that is still, a very important stream feature in our community, that if we do opt to put setbacks in, I would recommend that we should include intermittent streams as well as perennial, if we refer to that. If we just say any stream, then it could include all three of those. But if there's a question on the definition of a stream type, that could get us into a weird place.
Okay, thanks Becky.
And my other comment on like the building types or the construction or structure type, I agree that needs to be fairly well defined. And we could probably come up with some parameters of like a couple of you mentioned, if there's a foundation, because I think a patio would then qualify because that's kind of a foundation. If a shed doesn't have a foundation, perhaps we could put in a definition of it being a structure that has a floor, walls, and a ceiling. A pergola would potentially fall into a structure like that. I think fences need to be closely considered because there kind of two sides of that coin is that some people like to keep their property boundaries fenced to ensure that there's no trespassing, that someone doesn't get injured and then try to sue them because they were on their property. Someone may want to put a fence in, but perhaps there should be a 10-foot setback for a fence, even if there's a 50 or 100-foot setback for other structures. So I think that might be another one that we would want to tease apart and should look closely at fencing.
Perfect, thank you.
And we do allow fences and setbacks right now. Like regular property zoning setbacks. There's some restrictions on if it's in the front area, it can't be over 4 feet, whereas once it gets out of the front setback, it could be up to 6 feet for a privacy fence. If you're adjacent to a driveway, the line of sight can't be cut off, so it has to be low enough, so, or near an intersection. But we do allow fences in zoning setbacks and property setbacks right now.
Okay.
And one last thing on why we might want to consider just a slight setback from a water's edge, is that streams can offer very critical wildlife corridors, where there's, different plants and animals are, kind of moving through that fenced area. So that might be something that we would consider, just a slight setback, if we thought it was appropriate.
Okay. Thanks. Jen, I think you are technically still in your staff report, and we've been asking questions throughout. Is there more to your staff report?
Really, it was just kind of like to
Updates on
super
the-
key of what the key things you wanted to discuss, the 4 or 5 things that you were part of the discussion. One thing I did back and highlight, this is, again, on my PowerPoint, but the mitigation requirements, there was, rather than the proposed language, I went and looked at this again, and I actually did not, and I didn't necessarily get guidance on this. This was one of the things that I think that we have not, wasn't really discussed much, but, I went back and looked at this, and I'm still actually okay with what we're proposing on the right here. Just because, there's, it gets a little more into the details of it, but if you're gonna require a mitigation plan, and here's the thing. Somebody has a 25-foot by 140-foot lot, if that's all they have, I'm gonna guess that there's probably not anything that would prevent them from building on that lot. Most of those lots are on the south side or on the southern part of the north side. You have subdivision lots, maybe you would be looking at that, but when you're talking about a mitigation plan, I think it's for larger properties, and I would hate to just, because we do not have areas of like, geohazards mapped, other than whatever the state has right now on their web pages. I guess my concern would be saddling just your average property owner that has one lot and wants to build their house with really expensive kind of pre-construction design and engineering work. I do think in this community, I think that has to be considered. When you're looking at a larger property, obviously there's places where you can tell people don't build there. Or if you're gonna build there, again, like if you have a slope that's over a certain amount, then you do have to provide this plan, and you do have to show me show us how you're going to mitigate any sort of erosion or impacts from putting something on that slope. So you would have to have this plan anyway. Describe the scope, identify the locations and strategies, including maintenance and monitoring schedule. We are not requiring that it is the word they like, a professional, that I'm fine with that. If you wanted to say like a qualified professional and leave it open-ended, but to reiterate that somebody can't just, I'm gonna guess your average Joe would not try to come up with a maintenance and monitoring schedule and removal timeline and all that stuff. They may. I guess I'm just trying to be cognizant of not wanting it to be onerously expensive for just somebody that wants to build a house, just a regular house.
It is really expensive.
Pardon?
It already is.
It are really expensive. That said, I mean, again, to still balance it, there are properties we know that have really, are really steep. And so like, there's somebody that's been contacting us about, hey, I realize that the street right of way touches my property, but I usually access on the alley. I mean, those are things that we kind of have to look at on a case by case basis if they're already developed. If they're not already developed and we know it's really steep, then we would say, you need to have an engineer show us what these slopes look like. You need to have them tell us how they're gonna handle drainage. For subdivisions or larger developments, that certainly happens anyway, since we need to have, retention figured out. But yeah, I didn't change anything based on that. And so I just wanna put that in front of you.
Okay, and there was a comment about that, I think. A public comment that had some language that was recommended.
Yeah, like it says a written explanation of the impact. Well, I have that. It's called, it says describe the scope of impact. So it's just a different way to say it,
Okay,
but
perfect. Yep.
it's in there.
Okay, great. Anything else?
I mean,
Okay, great. So we can do some board discussion. Welcome, John. John is here for the roll call. We can do some board discussion if you have questions from Jen's staff report. Otherwise, I'm gonna open it up to public comment on the whole kit and caboodle, let everybody make their comments, and then we can start diving in. Does that sound good? Yeah. Does anybody have any comments or clarifying questions of Jen? No? Forrest or Becky, any other comments for Jen or questions?
None so far. Thank you.
None from me.
Okay, great. Let's open it up to public comment. So we are taking comment on this agenda item, the zoning code update. So if you have a comment, please come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and you get 4 minutes.
I'll do 4 minutes.
I believe it's 4 minutes, yes.
Could hardly say anything in 4 minutes.
You're gonna talk fast.
You're very efficient with your work.
There is. My name's Tom Blue Rock. I live at 122 South Second Street in downtown Livingston, in a redeveloped building. I would like to say one thing about your lower density mixed use zone, which I think is very, very well considered. Especially if you want to encourage lower income housing. And there's several sort of nuanced reasons for this. First of all, most of those are in infill areas, so the lots are going to be smaller or combinations of fairly small houses. So you're not going to have a lot of big projects. And I think like a 3-story density, which is about what that is very efficient in several ways. One is it's sort of the highest extent of a walk up. Probably allows so the construction costs are down. That's sort of the main impediment to building low income housing. Secondly, the new zoning code is not put a minimum square footage size for, so if it's defined the volume of a building, not the number of units in it, which will encourage smaller units, which will also increase encourage low income housing. So the fact that you sort of right size the downtown and sort of use that to buffer the downtown from adjacent residential areas and sort of extended it down Park Street, I think is sort of right sizing it for the size of the town. I think too many zoning codes sort of zone things too much and get sort of a hodgepodge, but I think this will, as things fill in, be good. I have to make one more comment about something that kind of stuck out at me and that's on the eastern end of town. There's some pre-existing zoning that in the growth policy was pretty much open space or very lightly developed, and it was left alone, especially in the eastern. There's a huge R3 area in there. That's sort of saying that's really in conflict with what the growth policy was saying. But all in all, I think what you've done in the middle of town is really positive. It sort of right sizes things. I wish the state hadn't made a 60-foot height limit, because I don't think that'll even happen. But Good job.
Thank you.
But think about that east end of town. I think it really is in conflict. I know it's sort of but you could do, establishing a low density zone and we're doing a zoning code so we could establish that if we want to, would be a step in the right direction, especially if the city expands a little bit. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Come on up. Kara, do you want to come? Oh, okay.
Morning. Good afternoon, planning board members. Randy Carpenter, 1108 South Black in Bozeman, representing Friends of Park County. I'm gonna echo some of what Tom said real quickly and reiterate my comments from last week. We enthusiastically support changing the highway commercial to LMU and lowering the heights in the CBD and keeping the LMU heights at 36 feet. We think it'll provide more housing options, vitality, improved affordability, less auto-centric, more pedestrian core, and respond to shifting development trends. And that the height limits will maintain a human scale and small city character. So right on, great job with that. You know, our concerns are with the proposed zoning in the outlying areas of the city that Tom briefly referred to. These concerns are based on the growth policy designation of these properties as open space / natural area, and a build out analysis showing that the proposed zoning for the vacant properties, the proposed R1 and R2 zoning for vacant properties would result in a lot of land, a lot of development potential, over 5,000 units, over 50 years worth of supply if Livingston keeps growing at the same rate. Specifically, the proposed high-density residential mixed use and R1 zoning in the area at the extreme northeastern boundary of the city. Again, that shows this as natural area open space. Understand it can't be zoned for open space only. Could open yourself up to a takings challenge there, of course. But clearly, high density residential mixed use, mid-rise buildings, higher density housing, more intensive commercial activity, office space, retail, restaurants. That doesn't align, to say the least, with growth policy designation. That the proposed high density mixed use is 261 acres. That could result in roughly 3,650 homes. We didn't include that in that build out analysis I just gave you, but that would be a lot of homes, over 3,000 homes. The R1 portion of that area, 307 acres, could allow about 1,440 homes. So in that northeast area up there, the Harkey Ranch, could allow over 5,000 homes. We're also concerned that HMU zoning in this area, 3 or 4 miles from the city center, would be really inconsistent with the growth policy's repeated goals of reducing urban sprawl. The other area I'm concerned about is the 143 acre Watson parcel split by Myers Lane. Again, growth policy map shows as natural area open space. R1, the proposed designation, would permit roughly 675 homes. Clearly, again, not in accordance with the growth policy. And again, none of those includes potential, those numbers include potential mixed use to homes that could result from mixed use zoning, which we think again is be great, the low density mixed use, get houses in there and commercial. But those numbers of over 5,000 units over 50 years do not include the potential mixed use. So to sum up, in those areas that I'm talking about, to the extreme northwest, the northernmost Watson property, in conflict with the growth policy designation, there, already would be a huge inventory of potential development, vacant development land, based on just the R1 and R2. So there's really no need, in our opinion, for that sort of higher density zoning district, We recommend an agricultural zoning district. Development could happen there under a PDU. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up for public comment. Name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Tara Eddy, 604 South 9th Street for 37 years. I want to thank all of you for your time and service. I appreciate you taking public comment. I turned in a petition against riparian setbacks with 41 signatures on October 8th, and I'm submitting 14 more today for a total of 55 signatures. I made comments on October 8th and also submitted a letter that was in your October 8th packet. Today, I'm sharing comments from other concerned citizens because this is a lot of people, and it took quite a while, and they all want to visit and say what they have to say. And so here's some of the comments. One of them, Fleshman Creek, I'm just saying what they said. Fleshman Creek is nothing but a glorified drainage ditch. There shouldn't be setbacks. 2, I've seen Fleshman Creek totally dried up. There are pre-existing irrigation rights up the creek, and it does go dry. And this, I've seen it, and several people have seen it. From several people, they said the creek runs under my yard. So what if something happens to my house and I need to rebuild with riparian setbacks? Because it actually says no redevelopment right now. 4, the town is already built up. The creek is under parking lots, streets, yards, and who knows what else. What will be prevented from being rebuilt if there's setbacks, if they have a fire, if whatever. Number 5, I heard this from a bunch of people. We take good care of the creek. We clean out garbage. We plant berry bushes and trees for the birds to eat on and other animals. And this is my comment. People who live on the creek love it and they take care of it. That's why they chose that property. Then there were some comments, the city dumped street water with oil and garbage into the creek. They should clean that up. 7, there's not much usable land. If 10 feet on each side or more, as has been suggested, if it's taken away from both sides of the creek. 8, we bought with 0 setbacks and an expectation of being able to use our land. And then regarding fences, there's quite a few places where the creek goes right through the property. And they own property on this side and they own property on that side. And if they can't fence that for the safety of the children, the safety of their pets, to prevent other people from coming in and getting hurt, that's a problem. And I don't know, building what isn't defined. So then lastly, and I think the most repeated by far comment was, I don't know anything about this. Why hasn't the city mailed us something? So there are a lot of people that are under the impression that they will be told about the changes, right or wrong. That's the impression out there, and they're pretty surprised. Pretty surprised. Anyway, thank you again. I appreciate this. And there are so many things that I agree with in all of this. It just happens that the riparian setbacks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other public comment?
Hi, good afternoon. I am Ken Cochran, president of Friends of Park County. I reside at 16 Majestic Ridge Trail, Livingston. I have submitted today detailed written comments to supplement my oral comments. Showing that the statements made by the Lund law firm on what the law is are not correct. And I'm outlining in that in my presentation, the strong legal, scientific, and constitutional foundation for the city's proposed setbacks, whatever limits you may choose. The Lund letter misstates the law. The U.S. Supreme Court decision in Ling versus Severn USA makes clear that the regulatory protecting public health and safety is valid as long as it is reasonable and evidence-based. Setbacks leave land usable are evaluated under the Penn Central standard, not the discredited substantial advances cited by the Lund memo. Legal jargon, but it matters. Secondly, Montana president strongly supports setback. The Montana Constitution, Article 9, Section 1 guarantees clean and healthful environments. Montana Code annotated 754104 requires DEQ to regulate distances from streams and wells. And the case law is replete with Supreme Court decisions which uphold land use limits adopted to protect the public welfare. Those decisions confirm that the economic impact alone does not regulate as unconstitutional when it serves legitimate community purposes. Most of all, for this presentation is the science is overwhelming. After the 2022 flood, the Montana Freshwater Partners conducted their channel migration map, showing that large portions of the Yellowstone River has moved. FEMA is in the midst of preparing their new floodplain maps for the Upper Stone River, including the sections running through the city of Livingston. These analyses will demonstrate that many of the areas discussed in the Lund memo, and which you must consider, lie in an active floodplain and erosion zone and act as critical pressure relief areas, protecting the hospital, bridges, and neighborhoods during the 22 event. Friendship Park County has done a build-out analysis that shows you have more land for housing than you will use in the next 50 years. I still recommend that you get your city attorney, your own counsel to fill you in on this. But based upon the conversation today and the comments by Ms. Severson, you need to consider the Upper Missouri Waterkeepers Horse Creek versus Broadwater County decision handed down February 14th, 2024. It is a monumental decision that directs what you must do in considering these issues. It's an 84-page decision. It's extremely complex, but what you're doing today is exactly what that decision requires. It requires a robust discussion of these issues, and you will see the science is there. The Severson has cited a bunch of articles that she has read, the Audubon and others. I recommend to you the Fish Wildlife draft version of the urban wildlife subdivision regulations. They prepared zoning regulations to cover these things. And it specifically deals with riparian setbacks. So continue the good work, continue the robust discussion, and let's come up with appropriate setbacks for rivers, streams, intermarried flows, all the subcategories. It's critical to our future. Thank you for your work on our behalf.
Thank you.
I'm Melissa Johansson, 405 Brookline, Unit B. My question is maybe a clarification question around the discussion about transitional and supportive housing in R2. I wasn't able to come to the meeting last week, but from my understanding, I thought your discussion was to allow by right the transitional and supportive housing in R2. But it looks like on the changes, it was left as conditional. But assisted living was changed in R2. So I'm just confused around that. And if the current draft is correct in that, I'm wondering what would be different between co-housing and multifamily housing versus transitional and supportive housing. Then looking at the chart of allowable uses.
We can answer your question after you. make
Okay,
your comment.
and then another question I had is I'm wondering where you're at, the idea of decreasing the lot size requirements for PUDs.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment in the room? Okay, let's go online. Do we have any public comment online? If so, you can unmute yourself, or turn your camera on.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hey, my name is David Fuentes. I'm at 1203 Wineglass. And my comment is around short-term rentals. I think that this board has done a good job establishing the framework of the start of what could be regulations. That being the table and the map, the zoning map. There was a comment made last week or the last meeting where it was suggested that this be a more focused, dedicated conversation with the community and the city commission. I think that's a great idea. Especially if you do decide to include it into this code, maybe we should consider doing that with the less restrictive approach and allowing public input and city commissioners to provide data on what it could eventually be regulated to. Other than that, I think the framework is there, and I do agree with it.
Okay, thank you.
Can we get a unit number for that address?
1203 Wineglass.
Unit, I need a unit number. There's more than one unit.
B.
Is there,
D, thank you.
you got it? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other public comment online? I'm not seeing anybody popping off. Any other comment in the room? We're gonna go last call. Last call for public comment. Okay, public comment is closed. Thank you, everybody. We greatly appreciate taking the time and effort to make comment, to come and speak with us today and send in your written comments. So please know how much we appreciate it. Okay, Land Use Board. We have an opportunity to discuss the action required today, if we have time for it, is to accept the city's recommendations for the current draft, except with suggestions or recommendations to the commission. Or I suppose we could.
Just one thing, did you want to answer the questions from public comment?
Yes, thank you.
There weren't many, but
I think there were two.
yeah. Basically, the transitional housing.
Yep,
Do we have that chart then?
we can pop that back up.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to pull all this together right now.
oh, okay.
And I think we had that, I think we tried to clarify that, but we'll
Yeah.
look
just
at it
go over
again.
One more
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. And then there was something about decreasing the lot size for a PUD. Correct.
Maybe you could touch on that first one, look into this. But the minimum lot size right now is a half an acre.
Half an acre.
And I will let y'all discuss because I have no recommendations one way or the other on that, other than just to say that this ordinance was very recently vetted and passed, so I would just say keep that in mind, but I did not make any changes to that in the code.
I did not think that we decreased the lot size, did we?
We didn't discuss that. I thought that person was saying it was brought up maybe,
Okay,
but that was not something that I made in the changes
Okay.
that were highlighted.
so I guess that's my understanding too. We haven't changed anything
In the PUD,
in the PUD
No.
as far as the required lot size. So the,
just where they're allowed.
yes, which is now in the LMU.
I forget.
Well, it was allowed in LMU anyway.
Now it's up to 4.
But now it's up to 40 feet for, the R2 and the LMU can have that additional height up to 40 feet from 36.
Mhm.
That was really the only change. The lot sizes, there's nothing
Yeah, the
that's
area, yeah.
different than what
Okay.
was adopted. Or what is adopted.
Okay, does that help answer your question? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's on page, I don't know, 18 of my old packet, Jen, the chart 30.40.
The one in the new,
And this was on transition, so.
so co-living housing is up to 10 private sleeping quarters. Supportive,
Just trying to see if the version I have is the same as what you're.
okay,
looking at.
it
was-
may not be, because honestly, we did not, the person who posted the packet yesterday is not the same person that updates our website, so the posted packet is what's the latest. We still have to change what's on our website because that person is out sick and I can't do it, so. This is what was in your packet. This is your packet.
And
But
so
I'm
your
saying on the
question-
web page, the separate web page for the zoning update, we were not able to update that yet.
So this might look different than what you can see on the city's website.
Yeah, so co-living, co-housing up to 10 private sleeping quarters. Transitional housing, I think I actually, after looking at other ordinances, decided not to put a max number. But because both of those are looking at more than typically a small group of people, like a family would be. I realize some families have like 12 people, 10 people. In general, that's why we've put no. One thing I do want to say is there are a lot of cities that may have a lot of more conditional uses. We have added a lot of conditional uses versus just a no or a yes here. Every time we add a conditional use, that is something that I have to review and I have to bring forward. So I would just say that that's why it's already a lot. I'm already very concerned about how
Yeah.
many we have brought forward. Yeah, that's why in this case, to say that they're just allowed when you have, if you have 10 unrelated private sleeping quarters, so that could be your kids are there, whatever, it's just a private sleeping quarter in the co-living. So if those 10 people each have a car, you're talking about 10 cars now, you're talking about traffic, you're
Mhm.
talking about trips. That's why I changed it from conditional to no in the R1 as a recommendation. Supportive and transitional housing to allow for that larger number of people that you might have. So if transitional housing is just a single residence or like a duplex where people are living, we're not gonna categorize that. That's the same impacts, that's the same, the gist of that is you're living like a family, a residential use. But for supportive or transitional housing, maybe that's like multi-units or multi-apartments within one. That's why we just said no, and then for R2, we'll look at conditional. I do see that we have allowed in the co-living again up to 10 versus since we don't have a max number conditional on R2. So I did not change that, but I'm happy to change that. I thought the assisted living, that actually lines up now with the supportive and transitional housing. So it was already no here, so now we have conditional and conditional here, we have allowed and allowed here, allowed and allowed, so that all lines up. I think that was that comment that I was thinking of. The assisted living now aligns with that supportive transitional housing.
Okay.
And for R2, it's conditional, or for co-living, because it's up to 10 units, it's allowed by right versus
So
conditional.
yeah, they're both good.
So
Yeah, makes sense.
there's no limit on what the supportive transitional housing, no limit on the number of like households in that. That's why it's conditional.
That's what my thought was behind this. Same with assisted living. We're not limiting it to a number. We could limit it to a number. If you change the definition, then that may change what we would recommend for this list. But it's just
Yeah,
also,
category almost, yeah.
you know, you don't wanna, I wanna be cognizant of allowing for for people to maximize the cost of that, the more units you would have in a structure, the cheaper it would be probably for you to operate. You could have more families. But, if we're not limiting it, then my concern would be to say, sure, it's just allowed anywhere in R2 is, because then you start looking at parking issues and, yeah. And
Okay.
because for like co-living, because those wouldn't be individual residents, again, because we put in the limit at 10. That's where I would want to draw that limit, because we can't require any parking because they're not individual dwelling units. So.
Okay. And when do you think that this can get up on the web so that the community can see the most recent?
I can see if I can catch Grant when we get back. My thing would be, I would rather update it based on what
On
you
this
give
and
me
then-
today. And
Okay.
then again, at the beginning, I'll change that date, the highlights, and I'll change the date to, because all this is tracked. I
Mhm.
was just trying to make it easier for the board to zero in on the things that have changed between the 3 meetings. So then I would go forward with, accepting these changes and removing the highlights.
Okay,
And then it would be up there. That would
Okay.
be the draft that I would bring forward if that's your recommendation to the city commission. And I want to leave that out there for people to see and comment on.
great. Thank you.
So I apologize for the confusion and the drafts that are on here. This has
It's a very large document and it seems
It's
ever evolving.
been surprisingly tricky for a track document.
No, fair, for sure. Okay, thanks. And I think those are the only 2 questions we had. So now we can move on to the task at hand. Who would like to start? As far as, the possibility of either making a motion or discussing some recommendations to the commission. And Becky and Forrest, feel free to chime in.
Thank you. I, if you don't mind, I might just go first. I'm sorry for interrupting. Jennifer, I just want to confirm what I thought I heard, and that is that your initial staff recommendation as written, not necessarily online, but that's updated in our email packet, is your latest recommendation moving forward for us to consider.
Correct.
And the differences between the latest and greatest that we currently have in our possession versus what's currently online, for others that may be in the audience or online watching, can you just clarify let's call it the delta between the 2 versions, just so that everyone's very clear?
Yes, and of course, that'll be updated. Right now, what is online shows the changes after September 17th. So the highlighted changes are after the first meeting we had. Actually, I take back, it might be after, was the 8th, the open house?
When
Yeah.
you presented your staff report and in the text of your staff report, the highlighted changes are from our most recent meeting, which came after
I can tell you right now.
the September 30th workshop. I believe
So,
we met on the 17th. The workshop was on the 3rd.
so the revisions online, the highlighted ones were made after September 17th land use board.
Okay,
What's in your packet was made after the 8th.
after the 8th.
Right.
I believe that's what it says
Yeah.
there. And so, based on whatever happens today, once you do make a motion for recommendation, then I will be updating what's online. It will be the same as what's in the packet to the commission unless we get more comments after that fact. We're gonna try to have the same version that goes out. The version online, and I think we need to talk about this internally. I mean, this typically, it's been out for about almost 6 weeks, actually 6 weeks, which is a pretty significant amount of time. But when I hear things like people had no idea this was going on, even though it's been out there for, like, we've been doing this for a year, that also concerns me. And so we're leaving this open for now. And my plan is to leave it open at least through the first commission meeting when this goes forward, because Yeah,
Okay.
I wanna make every effort to make
Yeah.
sure that people have a chance to review this, especially after your recommendation and those changes are made. To be able to come to that first city commission meeting and provide comments and feedback. Or the second one, but yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Forrest, did that make sense to you?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate the clarification on that. And I do have a proposed motion, but I would like to withhold that until the rest of our board members have a chance to ask any other further clarification questions.
Okay, thank you. What do we think? Do we have recommendations that we'd like to add, that we want to have conversations around?
Where did we, and I apologize for being late, it was difficult, was there, what other conversation was there around short-term rental?
We haven't had any real
Okay.
conversation around short-term rental, other than the one comment that came from the public during the public
Yep.
comment.
Okay,
And Jennifer did not make any changes based on our conversation
Okay.
last.
Only to the parking. There was a parking
I'm sorry.
requirement.
Parking.
Yeah, nothing about where they're
That's all
allowed,
that.
but it is, okay. so
Yeah, I'm sorry.
space, yep.
Talked to quite a few people about it. They liked the idea of restricting the zone where it could.
So that would be map
Yeah, that's true.
related. So that would be my one comment for our basis of discussion is, there's a lot of map related questions, right? And I think we want to make sure we first addressed any text.
Mhm.
The
And
map questions are the ones you can bring forward at commission. Comments,
Right,
questions.
that,
It's easy to change.
That's the
Yeah.
appropriate place.
Yep.
But you can still make recommendations.
Still me, yeah,
It's
absolutely.
just not part of your official motion.
yeah, there's a lot of reference in all of this to maps.
Yeah.
So just to keep ourselves focused on.
I did have one text thought.
Yeah.
Around the short-term rentals. And I'm just gonna kind of, I guess I'll just talk out loud about it. I like the idea of keeping the language in there that we have now, because I think it's a starting point for identifying short-term rentals within the community. When I spoke with people, I do wonder if it's worth having a third type. And currently we have owner occupied versus non-owner occupied within a certain distance. But has there's a property manager, or somebody that can respond, right, Jennifer? Like, it's owner occupied versus non-owner occupied, but they have somebody to respond within 50 miles.
Yes.
Are you talking about having a non-owner occupied, owner managed?
I'm talking about I'm curious about whether you could do, like, is there a third tier? And then when I think about, managing short-term rentals, is there a non-owner occupied, like, well, maybe I'm talking in circles. I was trying to think about people who do not live in the state and use, and have these as, investment properties and are absent, but I guess if they're not using a property manager, then they're gonna fall in, they are not allowed anyway.
Right.
But if they have. a property
Yeah, the
manager,
licensing would
Okay.
require. that-
Okay.
Yeah, he
Alright,
would
so maybe
check
I'm
and say,
answering
who
that
is your
question.
property manager? We need the contact info.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a property manager within 50 miles, then they are not allowed in any.
My guess is they would not get a license. Is that we would?
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I was kind of clarifying. So on the short-term rental, I think I would agree to stay where we are at this point. Move it on to the commission, and I think it's a good starting point for the community. And again, I sort of agree with the gentleman who made the comment. I think it's something that we can revisit as a community, but this is a good starting point.
Yeah.
Um,
And I know Commissioner's gonna have comments on it.
Yeah. I'm sure. And I'm sure, more of the public will have.
Oh, yeah,
comments as they move
absolutely.
Through, so, in the vein of, not pushing things through too quickly because people don't know about them, I think it's a good starting point to leave it as is at this time. Okay, that's my thoughts on short-term rentals anyway. I do have some other thoughts on other topics, but I always want to let you guys run with it first. So, Becky, do you have anything you want to add as far as potential recommendations?
Jesse, I think what you just described about the short-term rentals is kind of my train of thought as well. And I think that gentleman's comment, what you just reiterated about being able to have a starting place and go from there is a great idea. This is a very, a lot of people can get very passionate about this topic. And so I think starting with what we've got, which is, you know, we had nothing and now we'll have something, is great. So agree with everybody on that piece. On the riparian setbacks, I've got one comment I'll make and then kind of a question to the group. In that I like Jennifer's recommendation that we somehow in our board's recommendation kind of add in that we're going to recommend a little bit more research and then something that the commission can debate on themselves as the city commission kind of looks into it. So I don't think we should make a hard set recommendation on the numbers for riparian setback. And that we can do a little bit more research to refine that before it gets in front of the city commission. The question I'd like to pose to folks is that I've heard some people don't like the setback, but I haven't heard any specific examples of what people would build if there were no setback. And I was just curious if anybody had thoughts on what that would be. And that's it for me, for my comments and questions.
So what people would build if there were no setbacks? And I guess
Yeah.
I'm
I
just thinking
I don't
from a-
understand why they don't like it. I'm just trying to be more informed. So yeah, wondering if there are examples.
The only thing I can turn to is the comment that we had today, which is very similar to the comment that we had on the 8th. Where, you know, and actually, I had spoken with Tara and she was wondering about fences specifically. And I had somebody in the community mention, oh, it's good to know because I was thinking about putting a patio in. So those are some of the things that I think I've heard in the community that people were thinking they might build. Maybe even there was somebody who had mentioned possibly putting in an addition onto their house. I don't know how close it would get, but that again would be, you know, there would need to be a definition of construction, which would be my recommendation to the commission.
Things like pergolas or like fire pit areas or tough sheds like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Or patios or things of that nature or fences.
Yeah. Does that kind of help you, Becky, a little bit? Some of those topics were coming up in public comment and in outside conversations.
Yeah, that does. And I think this is gonna be a tricky one to really define, you know, broadly enough, but also specific enough to kind of find the happy place. You know, that's our job. It's always a difficult one. But I think perhaps as, you know, Jennifer, as you look into this and see what other municipalities have done with this, is if there should be kind of a caveat of a potential conditional use for that could be brought in front of the city if needed, just because there are so many properties that, like, I think someone mentioned that there's not redevelopment is not allowed. That's a little bit concerning because if someone already has a property there and they need to do maintenance on it, or, you know, there's rotted floorboards and they need to replace their foundation, but it's already a part of their house, that redevelopment piece is a little bit concerning that we would restrict that. So you know, perhaps putting something in for conditional for review would just be way too difficult. But that's what I guess my overall comment is. I think we should recommend additional research and no hard set numbers in our recommendation at this time.
And I'm just gonna add to that, so I agree with her recommendation. I also, again, with the definition of construction, and could we please differentiate between the Yellowstone and the perennial versus the intermittent versus the ephemeral? I think that's important to define those. Because there are plenty of creeks that dry up and run and dry up and
So
run.
we only have 3 creeks that I know of that go through Livingston.
Yeah.
And so I think for purposes of making ours as simple as possible, we will probably just name them.
Perfect, that
And
sounds
it
great.
doesn't, it's not, we're not able to say where it's dry here and where it's not. If the creek is dry, it still helps to protect it when the
Yeah.
water does run.
Yeah, fair.
To have, yeah, so,
Okay.
but I think if y'all are okay with just naming them, but
Yeah,
definitely
that's fine.
differentiating them, and I would say. For your recommendation, if you're gonna make one today, I would ask that you either recommend. Or provide direction that you would like to see staff like no setbacks. Or you're supportive of setbacks, but you would like more research or a number.
Okay,
And redevelopment is not, and anything that's like. That's already there, that's not what we're talking about, because that can just be control measures when they're doing that. This is a setback where you wouldn't have development, but we can define development if that's your,
and is it possible to grandfather in?
anything that's already there
Yes, grandfather.
is taken care of, and it's legally
Legal but
non-conforming.
non-conforming.
Yeah,
Okay,
and if the creek is running underground, then the high water mark is underground, so we're not worried about it.
Yeah.
If it's undergrounded across your property,
Doesn't
build
matter.
anywhere you want.
okay, perfect. I guess I would say, based on Jennifer's recommendation about whether we're supportive, non-supportive. I would say that I guess where I'm standing with supportive, but do think we need more research.
Information
On the distance, correct.
Yeah.
But
And
you're supportive of
differentiating,
setbacks.
correct.
Okay, so whenever somebody makes a motion, if you're gonna make one today, I would
Yeah.
say that would be
Got it.
helpful if you could include that.
Okay.
Maybe we should do that now, so we can just get that off the table.
Can we do piece by piece motion, or do
I
we have
would
to do?
prefer one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Motion.
Okay.
Sorry, it's two, especially if you're not gonna get through them all today.
Yep,
We're gonna write all these down and I can bring that
Okay.
if we meet again, or when we meet again, but then the motion should be made all.
15 minutes left, so.
yeah,
Yeah.
we gotta get moving. Do you guys have anything else?
On this topic, on the setbacks?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, do you have anything on setbacks?
No.
Okay, do you have something different?
Well, there has been conversation, again, I don't know what was at the beginning of this around East End, right? Some really good points made there. Where do we stand on that, I guess, are we counter to some things that are, and again, this is a map issue, so I think that kind of washes out our role in that. Is that a fair statement?
I was not thinking, I think it could be a text if we're recommending a different zone.
For agricultural, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
The only text amendment would be if. As far as for a motion, if you did want to recommend a new zone, a different zone that's not in here, an agricultural use zone. Then that would be a text amendment.
Wouldn't have to be adopted.
And as far as your recommendation of where that would be for the map. These are gonna be like, FYIs.
Yeah.
In the staff report to the commission, because they're gonna wanna see that that was your recommendation. With the understanding that you can't take formal motion on them because, thank you, state of
Yeah,
Montana.
I don't know that you can address it with a text because it's gonna be tied to the map.
Yeah, if it's
There's
not
no-
there.
I mean, we really can't address it. I mean, we can make a comment.
Well, what would you like to see in an agricultural zoning district? That's the thing.
Right, yeah,
It
to
has to
define
be a
that.
description, how are agricultural districts intended for, and this may be something that you asked me to look into elsewhere and bring back to you.
Well, we had that already.
I like the
We did
idea
have some ag-
of asking for you to look into what a very low density zone or an agricultural zone could look like with the ability to have a PUD on the basis of the multitude of comments around flood risk on the east side of the town. And that was what I was trying to get with all the comments on the 8th.
Yeah.
So we're
So,
not making a formal recommendation of where that's applied. at the end of the
Correct.
day.
But,
So it's a good tool.
yeah,
Getting it applied is gonna lie with the
Yeah.
city.
so it's just I guess it's a comment to the city. And I don't, my plan was to actually present to the commission, like, just give a public comment on behalf of the planning board and about the topics that we covered. So I thought that might be helpful, but this is one that I think that I would like to make the commission aware of, that we are, if we are interested in learning a little bit more about that.
And I think in your recommendation formal recommendation on the text amendment would be, that we recommend that staff
Research.
draft up or develop
Ag zone.
an agricultural zoning district that would be
We didn't.
lower density, allow, it may be in the growth policy.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
think the
think it
growth
actually is.
Yeah.
in the growth policy. I
It's
don't think
open
there's
and
an ag,
natural,
yeah.
it's part
Yeah.
of the.
UD.
So, and if you want it in the PUD, you can say that as well. Again, I will just say that if the purpose of the ag district is not residential, the purpose of the PUD that was adopted last year is in residential districts and to allow for flexibility. So if the purpose of an ag district is to not drive residential development there, then, and it's just low density, then you may as well just, you might want to consider sticking with an island.
My retort to that though, Jennifer, is the PUD is supportive of cluster development. And so some of those parcels are rather large, and if they clustered, it would leave more open space and less perhaps flooding. I mean, that's my train of thought with that one in particular.
Yeah. Again, I will say the Watson property, the large Watson property on the south side is governed by a development agreement. Only 60 out of the 400 acres can be developed.
Great.
So the numbers that were being thrown out, if those included all 400 acres, are not correct.
No, they
Um,
did not.
It was
They only included 60
it
acres.
was the HMU section and then the R1 that are on the north. That is,
Oh,
I
that's
read it.
the Glassy Baby
Yeah,
property? Okay,
yeah.
that, yeah.
That was how I read
Yeah.
it. Okay, so far we have addressed setbacks. We have addressed ag zone. We've addressed short-term rentals. Is there any other portion of this that we wanted to address?
I have a question about the ag zone.
Go ahead.
What's gonna be included in that? Like, what does that mean? Just open space, or can you have a cow, or can you have a horse in the ag zone?
It's like
But I
one
just-
house per 10 acres.
Just don't know what that, you say ag, and I think that confuses people, and they start going, "Oh, I can have a horse, I can have.
What just need to be.
I can tell you, I briefly looked into this. There aren't many cities that have agricultural zoning
No,
districts
no.
because most cities don't have a lot of agriculture. So it would be looking at how another, like counties probably define it, or larger cities that have that on the outskirts. And then probably tweaking it to adjust to what our lot sizes tend to be. Again, this district, if I'm understanding you correctly, even though you can't make a formal motion on the map, would be looking at the larger parcels that are on the east end of town.
Yeah.
Outside, correct? But yeah, that typically it's like low density residential. It allows uses that support the ag, the primary ag use. This is typically like how we had it in Boulder County. Like if you have an ag use, yes, there's, and then that's another thing we would need to change. If we have an ag use, then we would need to look at we would have to include numbers for animals and restrictions and allowances. And they would definitely be more than just some laying hens.
Yeah, and
So-
right now, in R1, the
And-
minimum lot size is 7,000 square feet, correct? So
Correct.
if we were so R1 is, the, parcel to the west of Glassy Baby.
Yeah.
That is currently R1, HMU is Glassy Baby, LMU is behind the hospital, PUD is above the hospital. So,
This is,
You know,
yeah, right?
People, they put animals on small spaces, that just turns into a dirt patch. That's all it is with hay, and that's all it's with manure and everything else that's going on with that. So it just strikes me as a strange thing to put over there, an ag use for that just seems weird.
and I think, I guess my, thought again, based on my time working on the growth policy is, when you sprawl out like that, like sprawling out, putting an HMU at the very end of the city limits when we're trying to be more compact and infill. And based on all of those flood maps and the comments around flooding, that's why I think it would be important to try and,
You see, and this is what I'm getting at though. If it's a dirt patch and you're worried about flooding, then it's even worse because there's no vegetation to hold in place.
I guess I'm more worried about single family homes falling into the river.
Yeah.
So let me just caution about, regardless of whether you say R1 or not,
Mhm.
a single family home, if they have 7,000 square feet, if they are building within in an area that is not a designated regulatory floodplain, they can build however they want that meets our building code.
Mhm.
And if it is in a floodplain, then it has to comply with floodplain requirements
Right.
for permitting.
Okay.
If it's in a floodway, which a decent little portion of this property is, they can't build anything anyway. There's no development in the floodway. Period.
And out there, that's to be determined yet,
Yeah.
With the FEMA funding.
still waiting.
Well, that we never, and so making decisions on what might be in the floodplain, I would just caution against that because we don't have that
We don't know.
information yet.
Okay,
Should we?
I think Forrest
We're
has
getting
one.
close, yeah.
I think we're getting close, unless anybody had any other questions.
I mean, to
Sorry.
time.
All right, we are ready to entertain a motion.
And because this isn't part of a formal motion, you guys want to just send me your recommendations for the map? I think that we could do that. You can say them now if anything else comes up, and then I'll include that as just FYI for the
Yeah,
commission.
And the only other thing I was gonna say about the map is there was comments from the LBID and HRDC maybe about the North Fifth and was it Front Street LMU? They had some concerns. But that's map, so we didn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
But maybe just, and again, I know the commission is gonna get all of this public comment as well. But that would be another area that we didn't discuss because it had to do with the map, but maybe they'd like to look at.
Oh, all of these comments
Oh,
they
go
get
right to
forwarded.
that, yeah.
Everything you got goes to the commission
should
and
start
top
reading
of
them
what,
now.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
'cause it's twice.
Yeah.
Good
They
thing
like
I
to
already read
read.
it.
They like to read.
Okay, okay. Forrest, I know you had something cooking in your brain. We are ready to entertain a motion.
Yeah, I think that our discussion as a group has been really comprehensive, and I think between those that have contributed, I think some of my questions have been answered. And I really like the staff report and how it was presented and proposed. The language seems like it's comprehensive, and I think some of the edits that have been shared since, I think also I think we have consensus potentially within the group to proceed with including it as it's been discussed. So I might pause just before I make a motion, just to ask if there's any other additional questions from staff at this time. With
From
none,
staff?
From staff.
staff or the board.
I think we only had a couple of, maybe let me just clarify before you make your motion. You need language in support of setbacks. Do you need language in our motion that recommends support of setbacks with more details
More information.
and more information? Okay. So just putting that out there for us before you make your motion.
Yeah,
And
that's
if you
fair.
want-
I admittedly have left the office and I'm now in my vehicle, so there's a few things going on. So I think I understand what is happening. But what I might also do is just, since I am driving and I do have a couple of other obligations that I need to attend to, I'm going to stay online. If anyone else in the room in person has the interest in making the motion with the necessary, please feel free.
Okay, we got one for you. We got you
Becky,
covered.
who's online.
Or Becky, yeah. Go ahead, Bailey. Did you have one?
I was going to make a motion to accept the staff report with the recommended changes from our last meeting. With the addition of having, having Jennifer look into the creek setbacks in favor of setbacks, but with more details around different distances and what other similar towns and cities have done, with their creeks. We would like to have text differentiating the different bodies of water, naming each one as opposed to the type of stream they are. So Billman, Fleshman, and the Yellowstone. And we would like to have the addition of the agricultural zone added to the definitions in the zoning code with research on what that looks like within our city.
Do we have a second? Frank seconds. Any more discussion from the board? Okay, let's do roll call for this one. Bailey,
Yes.
4. John,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Becky? Becky, do you have a vote?
She's still on.
Shoot, can you give us a thumbs up, Becky? We can't hear you. Or a thumbs down, either one, no pressure. Okay, great, thank you. And I also vote yes. Okay, motion passes.
Good job, team.
Well done. Thank you everyone very much.
20 minutes. Okay.
Now you have to formally adjourn.